Jake Thompson, On3.com, covers Ole Miss and the Southeastern Conference. Jake, happy Friday, brother. How you doing?
Happy Friday. Thanks for having me on again.
I appreciate you. Hey, look, we'll talk a little basketball. First, I want to talk just a little football. I would assume, early, anytime a job opening comes open, Ole Miss fans, especially a big one, Ole Miss fans kind of shut one eye and look and see. I don't know that Lane Kiffin was ever a real candidate. We may know that at some point. We may not ever know it. You may know it and can't say it. But I would assume at least today, now that Kalen DeBoer is the new head football coach at Alabama, Ole Miss fans can breathe a little sigh of relief.
Yeah, I think even initially Wednesday afternoon, this all popped. Wednesday afternoon when I was getting ready to head to the arena for the game against Florida in basketball. But seeing the initial names that always come out immediately, from national sources, which is usually from the agent or agents, depending on if it's not the same one, kind of putting out names and feelers. Kiffin's name was not on there, and I know everybody has felt he is the heir apparent to the throne, regardless of what other Saban assistants may view that job as well. But his name didn't pop up on any short list. Initially it was Dan Lanning. Kalen DeBoer was on there. I think Norvell initially. Sarkisian was an obvious one as well. But Kiffin's name was never fully out there or fully, believed as an option. And, that was a little shocking to me because I just expected that at least the name to be on there. But he was never up there. He's been out recruiting, just got back from his post, season vacation and had been out recruiting across the kind of the country and continued to never shoot up the list, even when, Lanning said no and Sark put that video out and Norvell, both of them got contract extensions and raises today. And, as long as the lanes got scratched off, he still never shot up the list until, it became official that he would not get it and DeBoer is getting it. And so, I think it was a different search for this time around. There was a little panic, but the fans, at least on the message boards and some of the fan base, wasn't as concerned as they would have been maybe if this had been like a Florida type gig for whatever, the reason may be this go around.
We won't know it until, all this kind of plays out. But how does this shake up the SEC? I mean, if you look at Vegas odds, and that's just one way to look at it, Alabama dropped from, second in line behind Georgia to right there tied at Ole Miss, courtesy of Ameristar Casino Penn Gaming at 11-1, which is still really good odds to win the national title next year. In your estimation, how does this shake up the SEC?
I think it makes Alabama, they're still going to be considered Alabama until they're given reason for us to not view them in that same light, next year or beyond. But, I think the SEC is maybe gettable. I know you're adding Oklahoma and Texas. You're not just going to sit there and go, all right, it's Georgia and Alabama, and, everybody can pretend they're in it, but in the end it'll be those two back in Atlanta come December. I think, Ole Miss is considered up there. Obviously Missouri has a lot of momentum. The SEC is, I think it's got a handful of teams now to consider. Texas, obviously, because, they're getting Quinn Ewers back, and they're still going to be very good from this run they made this year to the playoffs. But I think also it makes the SEC enticing as the 12-team playoff, the expanded playoff, makes more SEC teams in play. So they're not just having to be like, all right, we got to be one or two. We got to get to Atlanta and see what happens to get into that top four. Because as we've seen this year, going undefeated, really doesn't mean much if you're looking at Florida State. So you've got to win as much as you can and look as good as you can to get in there. This, from this fall on until it gets changed again, it's kind of anybody can get hot and get in that. And for the schools like the Ole Misses and I think the Oregons, which is why Lanning stayed, that this new setup plays well for them. That to kind of be that always a contender to be one of those 12 teams. So I think the odds were for Ole Miss. I mean, I think they're where they should be. It's it's a new world and a new feeling for Ole Miss fans heading into a football season in a few months. Of we got a new coach. Let's see what happens. Oh, we got a Sugar Bowl. Can we get to that again? It's no. Now the world is talking about us being one of these blue bloods and title contenders for the whole thing. And so it's created some excitement. And with Kiffin not really flirting with this job this week or not even being a name and being shut down by others who would know more, on the Alabama side of things, it's caused optimism that this is a long-term thing. It's not a 2024, whatever happens, and maybe he's here, he's not. This does feel like the start of something big, and the SEC title is obviously one of those initial goals on their board, vision board, so to speak.
Jake Thompson, On3.com on a Friday, talking about Ole Miss football and the effects of Lane Kiffin staying at Ole Miss, obviously, and the new Alabama coach. One more football question. As far as Quinshon Judkins, of course, going to Ohio State. Any word on possible portal guys or how that backfield might play out? I mean, I know spring practice obviously will be extremely important in determining a lot of that.
Yeah, they got Bentley to announce he's staying. They kind of got him kind of a new NIL deal and got him to decide to come back for one more year instead of, throwing his name in the NFL hat now, give it one more season at the college level. Then they signed or got Logan Diggs, the LSU player, to commit out of the portal. Now there's an injury question mark for him, and what that may pertain, it could be like a Zachary Franklin type issue of will he be effective or will he even play much at all? And then you've got Kedrick Riscano, a rising sophomore who was a big name out of the signing class a year ago, and he got a lot of special teams reps, but he's going to be asked as well to kick the tires on him. But the staff is still high on him, and that could be your three-headed attack. But I do think they'll look in the portal, continue to, especially after the spring practices, where that portal window opens up again in May at the end of the school year, to see if they can find one. They'll always be looking for another running back, just because I think you can't have enough players now because you don't know who's going to be here and who's not with the way the portal windows and these, the NCAA keeps changing these rulings on eligibility.
Let's shift over to basketball real quick. Rebs got a win, got back on track the other night against Florida, 103-85. They will host Vanderbilt coming up tomorrow at noon, and then, of course, travel next Wednesday to LSU. Back-to-back road games coming up after the two-game homestand against Florida and Vanderbilt, at LSU, at Auburn, before coming back home and taking on Arkansas. Your thoughts on this team and able to rebound? And, of course, the league is, we're only 2 games in. We'll see what happens tomorrow. But this league looks like a lot of people have projected it's going to be extremely deep. Ole Miss, one of those teams.
Yeah, I think the top half or wherever that line of demarcation kind of ends, I think we'll know after a couple of weeks of play, league play, where the haves and have-nots are. But, Ole Miss bounced back massively, needed to respond after that tough loss at Knoxville a week ago. Did so in maybe shocking fashion for a lot of people. I mean, scored 100-plus points, most points scored in the Pavilion in their new home, and kept Florida in check. It was up by 20, a good chunk of the game, especially in the second half, when they went on that 59-point run those final 20 minutes and put themselves back on track, feeling better, feeling good. And, they needed to split that, which they did, because you've got a winnable game tomorrow against Vanderbilt that's just down this year, just not doing great under Stackhouse this season. And you got an LSU team that was not great during non-conference play, didn't look great. And now, of course, you look up and see they're 2-0, but those wins are against said Vanderbilt and an A&M team that doesn't seem to know its identity and doesn't seem to have a consistent course right now. So it's kind of a gettable team at the moment. So they got 2 early wins as well. But I feel like Ole Miss, it should be favored. Obviously, it's heavily favored tomorrow and should be Wednesday. And if they could get to 3-1, I think, then next Saturday at Auburn, that's going to be kind of their first true test post-Tennessee to kind of see where they are. But, if they can get 3-1 early, keep racking up those wins, they're firmly in the projections for the tournament, which I think is a tremendous credit to and what he's been able to do with the players who stayed, and Morrell and Brakefield, and mixing in these new kids, Jalen Murray, Brandon Murray, Cisse, and Sharp, his 2 bigs. They've been able to produce points higher pace than we've seen at Ole Miss in a few years. And I think there's a chance that you could see for the first time both programs dancing in the NCAA tournament in the same season, which has not happened at Ole Miss. Neither the men's nor women have made the postseason in the same year together.
Jake Thompson, make sure to find him on On3.com, also on X as well. Jake, I appreciate your time on a Friday. Look, enjoy the weekend, and we'll do it again very soon.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks for having me back on. Y'all have a good week.